Holland appears as though he's on his way to wrapping up another championship. But this season's races have shown you can't count anyone out until the checkered flag falls. Brands Hatch will certainly be one of those places where drivers will have to be vigilant all the way until they cross the line. Could we see Holland get too complacent and slip up? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 8 of the PRL Formula 3 series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Ryan Jones. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. English racetracks are known for being hilly, fast, and narrow, and Brands Hatch checks all of those boxes. To really get a good look at what we mean, why don't we head down to our track guide.
All right, we've got Amjad Yammer to the GSRC Formula Renault 2.0, so let's do a lap around Brands Hatch. Coming up to Paddock Hill Bend, the track is going to drop away, and hitting the apex will be difficult. There's little time to recover if you botch it, because up next is Druids with its steep uphill braking. This can sometimes be a good spot to pass, but it's tough. Try to square off the exit of the turn, and then swing it right for the correct line in a Graham Hill Bend. There's lots of runoff to the outside that's considered fair game, so use it up if you want good lap times. Continue holding right and line up your brake marker for Surtees, because this is one of the most important turns on the track. It's extra tricky with its curved braking zone and late apex. And just to hit you with more difficulty, the exit is all uphill, meaning anyone late to the power will pay dearly across Pilgrim's Drop. Speaking of which, this is about the longest breather you're going to get around this short lap. Then you dive it into Hawthorne and pray that it sticks. Now that we've hit the back half of the course, we've got a series of right-handers. Westfield's kink and drop will lead you into Dingledale, which then climbs back up toward Sheen. The apex here is very blind and requires great precision to get right. You definitely don't want to deal with oversteer like Amjad has to here. From there, switch sides and then throw out the anchors for Sterling. The banking here should allow you to go faster than you'd expect. Make sure and keep it from pushing wide to the grass, then drift across the circuit to the left side. The final turn is Clark, which has a nasty hump right in the middle of it. Understeer is likely to be a problem. Then, the track is going to gently bend to the right as it guides you back to the line so that you can finish your lap around Brands Hatch.
You see a bit around Brands Hatch, of course, but why don't we talk about what this track has in particular for this car here, Ryan?
Well, this is a track that is probably a little bit suited to these open wheel machines. They're built for downforce, the F3 cars, and you've got a couple of quite high speed corners. Turn 1 is quite a sweeping downhill corner. You can carry a lot of speed through it. Hawthorne Bend as well, notoriously fast. And it's a track that isn't particularly stop-start as well, which means these cars are going to handle pretty well around here. Keep the speed up, keep using that downforce. Only 9 turns in length, but a couple good places to make an overtake happen. Should be a good race. Should be a good track to make my first foray into commentating an open wheel race. Can't say I've had a pleasure doing it before.
Yeah, this is certainly going to be an exciting one because this is a scary track, especially in these cars. But we want to remind you about our sponsor, ready to compete against the financial markets, supporting over 60,000 users across the globe. NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. Let's look at the championship, which cannot be wrapped up today mathematically, but certainly it's going to be hard to come back from what we'll see here on the points. Up at the top, it is David Holland leading Soroy and Seitz, who are tied for second. And then you go a little bit farther down to Kevin Santana, who could sneak his way into the top 3. Got a bit of a gap back to Rod Clenard as well. But other than that, Jonesy, it seems like it's kind of a foregone conclusion the way that Holland has been racing. What about the Teams Championship as well?
Well, I can't actually quite see the Teams Championship, but I'll tell you the driver one. The top might not be wrapped up, or the top will be wrapped up probably, but the lower down up positions, they're definitely still up for play. And yeah, the Teams Championship, it's going to be a close fight. up and down the order. Not for the
And
top, though. Yeah, there we go. Now I can see it. Yeah, Vantage is 0. Yeah, 83 points out clear. Sorry, guys. It's definitely looking pretty comfortable for them, similar to the drivers. But again, like that driver standings, it's all to play for second, third, fourth, and fifth. It's still a very close fight from best of the rest, you would pretty much say.
Absolutely. Now, in case you're like Ryan and you haven't had a chance to see much of this series before, why don't we look at the race details? And of course, we are in round 8, so it's towards the end of the season. And they only have one drop week, of course, in this series. Now, they have an open setup, which could be important. I expect a lot of high downforce around this place to try and crank it into the wing. But they do have a limited fuel cell. So in this 45-minute race, you will see one required stop for fuel to get to the end. They have a 20 incident limit. Probably not going to be an issue considering how close the barriers are. And there you see the bonus points that they have that you can grab around here. Of course, guys like Soroy, Seitz, and Santana are going to be trying to grab one of those that they can to try and overtake David Holland. So that they can try and chase him down in these last 3 rounds. We are once again watching this on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and subscribe. Very easy to do so. All you have to do is click on the big red button that says subscribe. It's right below the video here on YouTube, and you won't miss a moment on IESN. Up at the top, we've got Greg Seitz right now, so he is taking it to Holland as best he can. He was quickest in the warm-up, and he's got Soroy behind him, interestingly. Holland has put a few laps in, but his quickest is still more than half a second off of Greg here, Ryan.
Yeah, only 6/10 off at the moment. Rob Clinard just put himself up in a second place, actually, so that pushes Holland all the way down to 4th, and he's under a little bit of pressure at the moment to try and get himself back up into the front row of the grid. You never know what can happen when you start a little bit down the order. We know, of course, he's looking comfortable for the championship, but you can never say never. He puts himself in a bad spot for the start of this race. Who knows what could happen?
Ooh, and Rod Clinard now jumps up into 2nd place, so Holland bumped down to 4th. Granted, he could cruise home to victory in these final few, so all he really has to do is just bring it home like he has been, which is finishing within the top 5 all 7 rounds so far. Even on his worst day, he's still finishing well up the order as we continue to watch most of our drivers cycle their way around. Raymond Day not looking too bad today. He's actually coming out of the pits, the number 77, so he's going to try and get some more laps in. Watching on board Clinard now. Looks like Clinard's going to abandon his lap, so we're going to head over to Nicholas Delp, who's on the back half of the course. Some of these very, very fast corners that they have to whip around. But we saw, well, we didn't necessarily see, but I was mentioning that Day was coming out of the pits. This pit exit is a bit of a concern for me here, Ryan. The way that it leads you right into Paddock Hill Bend, that first turn.
Yeah, and it dumps you straight onto the racing line. Someone coming from the normal racing line, racing surface, coming onto a hot flying lap. They're going to have to watch out for people coming out of pit lane through the pit stop window today, and even in qualifying too right now. Because when you turn in, you're committing yourself to the corner. If a car pops out of pit lane into your vision, you've really, the only option you've got is to either back off or head out to the gravel. Both options actually are probably going to end up with you out in the gravel. So switchy are these cars. So yeah, it's an incredibly dangerous, really, pit exit, but just one of the characteristics of this track that drivers have got to get used to.
See Holland there continuing to try and get himself higher up than 4th as we watch Rosenbaum as well, but unfortunately his lap didn't count, so he is still down in 18th. Castelli as well, doing what he can. It looks like his last lap was his quickest, and that's actually going to bump him up to 18th. So what about Greg Seitz? That last lap, a 19.8. Santana as well. Where is he sitting? Because he was very good in the warm-up. Oh, wow, he's down in 12th. So the 666 certainly struggling today.
Yeah, he's still gone 2/10 quicker than his practice time though, so he's just struggling overall a little bit for a little bit of pace. Still got just under 5 minutes left in the session, so still plenty of time to improve. It's about 3 or 4 laps still he can get out there. Relatively short lap time at this circuit. He mentioned it's like 9 kilometers length, only 3.7 kilometers long. So the lap times come thick and fast, just over 75 seconds. So at least if you do ruin one lap, you can get back around and start your next one pretty quickly. And if you get into a rhythm, you can pump out quite a few quick laps in very quick succession.
So we're going to watch sights once again. Still our provisional pole sitter with 3 minutes left to go. He's trying to improve on this 14.6. Let's see what he's got as he crosses the line. 15.2, that's well off of his quickest. We switch back to the second place driver now instead. Another one coming around to finish the lap as he has to duck under a bear in the process. That could have held him up slightly. He's got half a second to make up to reach our pole sitter. And it looks like he is not going to have a quick lap as well.
Yeah, that one well and truly off the pace. Joshua Daniels comes across the line, does a 15.649, moves himself up into 8th place, up inside the top 10. So he found an improvement on that lap.
Now we check out Armando Edwards, another driver unusually far down in 15th with a 16.2 being his quickest. He's getting a tow from Rosenbaum in front of him. So let's see if this one is any quicker. It is 2/10 up, and that will jump him up to 13th. So a small bit of gain, but he's got a ways to go.
2/10 might be actually what he found in the slipstream there. Definitely a beneficial end to the lap as David as well going to get pretty close to the end of his lap.
Looks like he's not going to go any quicker though. That 15.3, about a half second faster than that last lap. What about Santana, who we've been waiting to try and improve? A 17.8 is not going to do it. This is a dire day for him. So instead, we switch over to Barnett, who's down in 22nd. His last also at an 18.4. Looks like Soroy is on a bit of a slow lap here. And yeah, indeed, that one didn't count. So must have been an out lap. Holland, in the meantime, he jumps up to second.
There we go. That's the improvement we expected to see from him. Still better part of 3/10 actually away from Greg Seitz, but still has to start on the outside of that front row.
Now we head to Day. The Club West driver looks like that was still slower, unfortunately for him. As we now come back to sights once again, still trying to improve. David Holland came within 3/10. That's a good buffer, but I'm sure he'd like to be as safe as possible. And a 14.7 is not any quicker, unfortunately.
A lot of people struggling to find an improvement now at this point in the session.
Yeah, this is it. This is the dying stages. So if they want to do something, they really got to do it now. Holland, who works his way up towards Clark, had an off track. So this one not going to count. And indeed, he's not going to cross the line. So he's going to call it a day. Verity did not. And well, his last one said a 41 second. I don't think that's correct. He must have had a connection issue. What about Duprat here? And the number 88, 116 flats, not going to do it for him. Raymond Day going to abandon that lap. What about Kranefoos? He's a little bit behind, and he's also not happy with that lap. He's going to come in. So not seeing many changes here now that the checkered flag is out. Greg Seitz is going to take it, even though he still has that pole position. Let's see if he can improve on that 14.6. He does by 2 more tenths. Wow.
4/10 quicker than Holland, 6/10 over the rest of the field. That's a massive margin at a 75-second lap time.
Verity with a bit of an off there, so unfortunately it's done. Soroy just crossed, and that's not a good lap for him. Christopher Richards did have a quicker lap that time through a 16.2, and I'm not sure if that improved his position, but he is in 16th. Looks like he did not jump up any higher. I think that is the last of our drivers. Yes, it is. All right, so our grid is set. Why don't we go through it and show you what it's going to be like as we get the green. Greg Seitz has responded to the need to take it to David Holland with a monster gap to him compared to what we saw in the past. Holland still on that front row, at least, with David Soroy starting in third today. Rod Clenard will be P4, followed by Raymond Day in the 5th position. And then you've got James David with 6th place. Nick Delp starts 7th today, and Daniel Cranefuss will be P8. Josh Daniels 9th, and Santana a shocking 10th.
11th place will be Stephen Verardi. Starting from 12th will be Eric LeBlanc. Lionel Duprat and Armando Edwards line up off the 12th, third, the grid ahead of Owen McLaughlin 15th, and Christopher Richards 16th. 17th belongs to Sheldon Rosenbaum, ahead of Matthew Gonderson in 18th. Top 20 rounded out by Sebastian Prolz and David Cristelli.
Then you get to the final bit of the field here. Tyler Gore 21st with Daniel Barnett in 22nd. Steffi will start P23, and the last two drivers put time in are Hebert and Jacobson in 24th and 25th. Don Lee did not get a time in. I do see him in the session, so he should be starting. Same thing with Andy Spicer, unless they have some reason that they can't make it out to the grid in time. Right now, drivers already lining up, and we're waiting for maybe about half a dozen more to plop it out onto that Brabham straight. The question is, how many are we going to see the checkered flag? This is a track notorious for gobbling up cars with fast corners, very little runoff, and a lot of blind crests around it. Also a huge difficulty in trying to pass as they finish up here. Just Santana, David, Spicer, I see still waiting to get out there. Cristelli as well. Our pole sitter yet to line up. Holland is out there, a championship leader. Again, 42 points between himself and Soroy and Seitz right now. So both he and Soroy will need to really push hard to try and run him down with only 3 laps to go. That is a lot of points to make up. Spicer and Hebert are last two. Certainly taking their time to make sure that the setup is correct and they're happy with it. It's not too drastic of conditions. It's a relatively cool track. We'll go over that in a little bit, but I think our time is winding down, so we might have both of them starting from pit lane. Hebert finally joins us. Spicer going to be starting himself from the very back here. I'm hearing the engines rev, so I think so. Yes, lights are up. Green flag is out. Off the line. Oh no, Seitz with a horrible start. And honestly, Soroy made a fantastic dodge. That's going to get him up to the front. He takes the lead away from David Holland up and around Paddock Hill Bend as everybody behind comes through the valley, and it looks like it's clean as they now swing it around Druids.
It just about found a gap to get to the inside of Seitz and puts himself up in that lead ahead of Holland, and now watching Rob Clenard get a good run as well on Greg Seitz. We lose another spot. He manages to hold on, but that was a fantastic move. There was about a car's width and a bit, and he just found that gap. Good reactions to avoid the rear end of that machine, and Seitz gonna have to recover now from what was a good starting spot, but a horrible conversion.
We had an issue with Gunderson and Rosenbaum already finding themselves at the back of the field. They had issues in Surtees, which we'll look at later. See if we can get the replay up for that. But right now, Soroy with a lead of nearly 3/4 of a second over David Holland. Seitz has got his feet under him, and he's trying to chase down David. We knew he had the pace single lap wise, but how is it going to perform over the course of the race? Can he find a way by? Right in on board with Soroy here. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, Seitz, he's recovered now. He's starting to pull himself a little bit closer to the back. David Holland got himself away from Rob Clenard, and just got to make sure he gets his tyres back into the right range, because when he lit those up off the line too, he would have probably almost overheated those rear tyres a bit, which would have probably led to him being in struggle street for the first lap. But I think he's recovered now, and in saying that, Holland has let David Sorois pull out absolutely zero gap too. So gonna be a pretty good fight for the top 3 here.
Two more drivers with issues up into Druids here on the second lap, McLaughlin and Edwards, unfortunately. Well, we've hopped on board looking over the shoulder of David Holland. Certainly seems to have something on Soroy. Had another self-spin from Jeff Jacobson. Don't need to go to that right now because look at Holland close that gap up and start to threaten.
Can't make a pass though. This part of the racetrack, you've got to wait till pretty much the first sector, turns 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pretty much the best places to overtake. Maybe into Hawthorne if you're extremely brave.
Yeah, with a bit of that slipstream, maybe. Again, like you said, brave though. Meanwhile, these top 3 you can see pulling a tiny bit of a gap over Clenard and then a bigger gap back to Raymond Day. So the podium's starting to stretch away from everybody else as they once again headed into the short braking here in Druids and then back down the hill they go into Graham Hill Bend. Let's see if anybody wants anything once they come out of Surtees and over Pilgrim's Drop that leads to Hawthorne.
If Holland can get the good run here. That corner is very tricky as it is, but it does offer up a few opportunities if you get the line right to get a fantastic run down this straight, which Holland did, but probably a little bit too early to try that move into Hawthorne, but definitely going to bookmark that one in the back of his mind that he's got a much better launch coming onto that straight than David Sorois, certainly that time by at least.
That looks like a strong point for him at the very least. I wonder if we could go back and watch the replay of that incident in maybe not, because Holland with a bit of an off there, and this is going to offer an opportunity to Seitz, who's going to try around the outside of Clark. But a good cover from David Holland saves his bacon, at least for that corner. Back behind them, Clenard watching and gaining ground. Another look to the inside, another bit of defensive driving from Holland as they both slide into there, and Seitz has to catch it a couple times before he finally gets it pointed forward. Clenard thinks about maybe getting third away, but nothing doing there. Whoosh, scary moments for the 74 car.
Very close to making contact as that car twitched through the first corner. Extremely fortunate in the end for both those drivers. And that has actually allowed David Sorois to open up a pretty decent advantage. Oh, Holland's made another mistake off the track again. And here comes Greg Seitz once more. They'll go side by side. And he's going to clear him easily by the time we get down to Hawthorne. So Holland, not comfortable at all at the moment.
This is very un-Holland-like compared to the season that he's had prior. And now Seitz is going to have to, well, set his sights up to Sorois and see if he can chase him down. I think we had another issue with Sheldon Rosenbaum, as it looks like he's off in Surtees. I think this was another self-spin, so not sure if we want to go back to this or not. Looking a little bit down the order at some of our action up in the front pack here. Kranefoos trying to hold off James David. This is for 6th.
I'm not going to let you get away with that pun either. That was horrible, Joe.
Oh, thank you very much. I take that as a compliment. Oh, and
here we go, though.
And
yeah, here we go. He's going to defend it.
Very defensive on James David. So James not able to do anything with it. Santana's back there. He's climbed up 2 positions since the start. We commented on his poor qualifying. His heat goes way off on the exit of Graham Hill Bend. But he's up to 8th. He's looking at 2 more spots potentially, depending on how much these 2 battle.
There's a few drivers, a lot of drivers making mistakes at those. You've mentioned a couple of self-spins already.
And speak of the devil, Jay Steffi has had a big problem. Let's take a look at the replay. He's really smacked it into the Armco here, if we can check this one out. Here we go. I think this is another one coming out of Graham Hill Bend. Maybe just a little too far out into the AstroTurf here.
Yeah, just got the grass on the edge of the AstroTurf, and that's sped him down to the inside into that Armco barrier. That car going nowhere after that one. Yeah, everyone's just struggling with grip out there, it seems. Everyone's running wide off the corners and going that grass. We've seen Holland do it. So, you know, it's definitely a bit of a struggle out there today. in the track terms, only 24 degrees. It's a bit uncharacteristic, really.
That's a little bit cool. We check on 10th place right now. Josh Daniels leading 2 cars, LeBlanc and Duprat. This is all for position between this trio. Ooh, there's a big wobble from Duprat in the back of the group there. That's going to lose him some time. Still giving chase, Josh Daniels, as he climbs up and over the crest out of Surtees into Pilgrim's Drop. I don't think LeBlanc's quite close enough, but he's at least going to get a tow.
Yeah, just going to make sure he sets himself up here. Now's part of the track where you can't make too many overtakes, barring big mistakes from the guy in front. So just get yourself into a rhythm through here and slowly get yourself closer and closer. Don't have any unnecessary lunges. And then heading into the final corner, set yourself up through there to get a very good exit out of it. And then you get that benefit of a good exit plus slipstream down the main straight. And LeBlanc can think about a move into turn 1. Let's see if he does it here through the final corner. And they're both very, very even through there. So he'll just find the slipstream, but he won't be close enough for a move just yet. He can keep working away at him, just bit by bit.
It seems like both of them are sliding quite a lot, especially over places like Clark, as once again, using every inch of track, they swing it out of Paddock Hill Bend and then into Druids here, back down the hill into Graham Hill Bend. LeBlanc just hovering around, tantalizingly close to Josh Daniels without being able to attack quite yet. An update on our battle for the lead. Well, not really a battle quite yet. Soroy has been run down slightly. Seitz has cut it to about 0.7 of a second here, and he's gapped Holland to about a second behind him. So Seitz is pulling him back in, but he's got a ways to go before he's within an arm's length.
Yeah, he's the slowest driver of that Joe. Holland's quicker than him as well, so big chance of that becoming a 3-car battle very, very soon. We're on board with LeBlanc, I think, as he makes his way into this final corner up ahead, and now we'll see, again, if he sets it up. The thing with them being such high downforce cars, though, you can take so much speed through the corner, but only if you get the line right, and it's a one-line thing. When you do that, as soon as you try to take a wider arc or something, you can find yourself really hurting for overall speed through the corner, so he's going to be careful about it. But he is visibly closer on this lap, so there's still plenty of time left in the race. Keep doing what he's doing. He'll get there very soon. In fact, probably at the end of this lap, because he's very close now.
He's got 0.8 of a second, but unfortunately, we're going to have to duck away because Seitz now has it down to under 0.5 of a second on Soroy, and he's going to close it in more here because once again, through Pilgrim's Drop up to Hawthorne, that draft, wow, it's down to 0.3 of a second now. If Soroy's not looking in the mirrors, it's only because he's probably ripped it off.
Yeah, Holland was the fastest driver of the 3 last time by, so he's still coming at them. Seitz will know this too, and he will want to get this move done as soon as possible so he can potentially gap David Soroy, put some space between himself and David Holland. But even now on this lap, just within half a second of the leader starting to be affected by that dirty air, and Holland is closed up to him now. So the gap between the 3 drivers is about the same from Soroy to Seitz and Seitz to Holland.
From David's perspective, it's David Holland actually putting wheels into the gravel there, coming through the valley, but it didn't slow him down because he's cut it down even closer to Greg Seitz. Greg in a bit of a David sandwich now. He's, like you said, he's got to go on the attack soon.
With the puns, man, Joe.
This is what it's going to be like every time you commentate with me. You got to get used to it.
I'll bookmark that. Seitz here just filled the mirrors of David Soroy's there. In no way, shape or form is he going to have a look up the insiders. Actually dropping a couple tyres off the grass, so I'm surprised they didn't lose the rear of the machine. But clearly able to use some of the grass on entry to that corner. Peculiar, but it seems to be working.
Hasn't spun him out yet. Oh man, Seitz is getting awful close. It is about a car length and a half back to the number 74. If he can just get a good run coming out of Clark. And it looks like, unfortunately, he lost just a few feet. Enough that is going to keep David Soroy clear of him now that they come into Paddock Hill Bend. These three drivers sizing one another up. All it's going to take is one mistake from any of the three.
P6 battle.
Yeah, go ahead.
Still going so busy. I tell you what though, because James David has gapped Santana and now is able to attack Krenofus without really having any pressure on him himself, so he can afford to have a couple lunges and not then be under pressure of losing a spot, and then, you know, being the big deficit in the battle. Because when you have got someone behind you and you're trying to attack the guy in front, you can't have those lunges because you'll lose out. He's got a bit of breathing room now.
Not sure if this was a wreck, but I see Sheldon Rosenbaum is grayed out after a short time in the pits. So we'll do some research, see if we can figure out what exactly happened, because I didn't have my eyes quite on it. But Holland has now put the pressure back on Greg Seitz. Seitz actually took a little bit of a peek up into Hawthorne this time on Soroy, but didn't make a serious attempt. Just showed himself in the mirrors. I almost wonder if that hurt him, because you can see how much closer Holland is now as Seitz went a little wide. And did we lose Rod Clenard? He's grayed out on my screen. Might have a bad connection. I do recall, didn't he have a lot of issues with that years ago here on PRL, I want to say? I remember it was a source of ire for poor Ron, to the point that we had been requested to not mention it quite as much on the broadcast. So as we stay on board with David Holland, the number 18 leading the championship, again, doesn't have to do anything here, Ryan. He really only has to sit back here and just make Greg sweat.
Yeah, but racist mentality, Joe. You always want the best possible result. And he's sat here watching the top two right in front of him, within touching distance. I mean, as much as the championship picture should come into it, it'd be a test of his resolve, I guess, here to see how aggressive he is. Because if I was sat here in third, I'd be gunning for the win.
Yeah, and from what I've seen of Holland, he always is. He doesn't quite think as much about the championship, especially in this case where he's got it so well wrapped up. But Seitz, who's going to have to go defensive into Druids, covers off Holland. If he can carry the speed around the outside and he can't quite find the grip, that means he's not going to get the attack into the inside of Graham Hill Bend. So Seitz covered that one off, but now he's got to be thinking twice about how things are going in this race.
Yeah, if these two keep battling too, David Soroy is going to start to open up a gap. So Seitz is definitely going to make a conscious decision here to go by a lapped car as to whether he wants to fight Holland, or whether if he lets Holland go, maybe Holland will drag him up, potentially past Soroy, and then go from there, because otherwise you're going to lose every chance at winning this race if they keep battling for second and third.
Looks like they've gapped one another a little bit, so let's try and give a little bit of love to the rest of the field, which is having battles. We just haven't had time to see it. Down to P12, Richards and Cristelli. These are two we haven't really been following yet in this race. We've also got Verity and Don Lee back there as well. So 4 cars all together as they come around the back half of the course.
None of them really close enough at the moment to make anything happen. Stephen Verardi, probably the closest of the bunch, onto the back of David Cristelli. So if he gets a good run through here, he's certainly going to be close enough for a look into turn 1. And Cristelli was very good through that final corner there. Opened up a bit of the gap on the entry, and of course it comes down as we head down the straight with the slipstream effect. But he's benefiting too from a slipstream from Christopher Richards, which is definitely helping with this battle. But into here we go.
We got to go to the lead. We got to go to the lead, because another look from Seitz into Hawthorne. And he didn't quite pull it off, but he has gapped Holland once more and actually closed in on Soroy quite a bit. But once again, just poking his nose and trying to see if there's something there, but he's just about a foot shy each time.
And by the way, Verardi did make that move stick in the background. But yeah, this top battle is the place to be at the moment. This is where the action is, at the front. And it's interesting, Holland's pace. Some laps he's right up there, other laps he's dropping off. It's a peculiar sort of tail for Holland there in third. Maybe he's just made a decision now to lay off and let Seitz go at it.
Yeah, I'm going back to check to see if he made some sort of mistake, and I'm not finding anything. So yeah, it could be that you're right, that he's just giving a little bit of a buffer here, making sure he's got some room. Do we have a pass with Crane Foos here? Yeah. David looks like he is. Oh, wow. James David made a great pass into Druids. And we're going to have to stay on the replay because the lead...
Live pictures, though, because Seitz has just taken away the lead from David Soroy into Hawthorn.
So there's the pass David managed to make. And then Greg Seitz here, you're going to see, like Ryan said, into Hawthorn here. Does exactly what I've been seeing him do all race long, which is get a good launch. But this time he was close enough. And no coverage from Soroy, interestingly. He just let him through. Was Soroy on the limiter there, or was that Seitz that was on the limiter? Not sure which car that was. As Holland gets close now, so Soroy might actually lose 2 positions in 2 laps here, unless he starts to decide to defend.
And Seitz had telegraphed that move, hadn't he? We'd mentioned a couple times him showing the nose into Hawthorn, but not going for it, as Soroy throws his machine to the inside. Can't take that spot away that time round. And surprised that Soroy didn't see that one coming, really, because Seitz was looking a couple laps in a row there, and finally had the run to make it work. And I think maybe Soroy is just trying to consolidate a good finish here, maybe.
And those drivers that we were watching before in that battle in the mid-pack, Castelli is in, Lee is in, so they weren't happy riding behind the others. Trying to take a little bit of an alternate strategy as we're just about halfway here. Lee is the first to be in and out. Castelli's got some sort of issue, though. Not sure why he's in this long. We can't stay on that pit stop too long here because Holland continues to give us action. Oh, and this is a great run coming out of Paddock Hill Bend. He decides it's not worth trying to send his nose in, though. So Soroy will retain second place.
If he stays close through here, he's definitely going to have a shout into Hawthorn. Whether Soroy wants to be overtaken by 2 different people into that corner, though. See if he defends it. Holland was just a little bit on the edge through there, and it's hurt him because... Oh, Holland. Did he just get out into the grass, or was that
my... He did. He's fiddling with a radio knob or something.
He just forgot to turn a little kink in the straight. That was odd.
Yeah, had to have been messing with something, but it didn't hurt him too badly because he's still behind Soroy. Something we haven't mentioned, although our eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed, despite all this fighting up at the front, they've left Day behind. Raymond Day in 4th is nearly 8 seconds back from David Holland. Giving him a little screen time in the number 77. Wonder if we'll see any other drivers duck in. Oh, and Lee is in a second time. Now, what has brought David Lee, or Don Lee, in for a... Looks like one of our front runners electing to come in, Kevin Santana. He was still in 8th position, hadn't gained anything. Let's see if this is a normal stop. It is indeed. Oh, I think Holland's got the run he needs. This will be telling. Does Soroy defend? No, he doesn't. Still, Soroy just lets them through. And that's the driver he is directly behind in the points. And he was tied with Seitz in the points. Now things have, well, I guess he wasn't tied as soon as Seitz took the pole here.
The gap that Seitz has pulled too after that. In a 15-1 last time by 9/10 quicker than David Holland. So Holland, if he wants to win this race, has got a lot of work to do now. Even though Soroy wasn't really fighting either of these two particularly hard. He was definitely the slowest at 3. And I think for him, I don't know why he did. Let's go to P12 though.
Yeah, we had a swap for positions. Verity managed to get by Richards. Or no. Is it Richards managing to get by Verity? Whoa, we got a car off back there. Cristelli, who was a lap down and just finished his pit stop, apparently didn't quite get the heat into the tires yet, because that was a wild ride coming out of Sheen. Let's get an onboard here, because usually you don't see drivers come away from this one and stay on the track. That is a very fast part. Whoa. Great job keeping his head cool in that 009 car.
Yeah, he just took some steering angle out of it and just let the car slowly come back to the racetrack. It's showing a lot of experience and cool-headedness, as you say, behind the wheel there.
Looking at Soroy, who... Oh, did Soroy get back by Holland? When did this happen? Let's take a look and see where this happened. It was a bit ago. Oh, Holland coming through Paddock Hill Bend had an off. Let's see if this is the replay here. It gets all sorts of squirrely. This is it right here. Watch this car snap. Oh. Wow, I can't believe he kept that thing from spinning around.
He's had like, what, half a dozen off tracks by now. Holland's making a lot of mistakes out there today.
Well, I said off tracks, the DQ limit shouldn't be an issue, but maybe it will be in the end as he gets another good run with an extra little toe there from a bear letting them through. He's going to give up on it, though, by the time they get into Hawthorne. And this is increasing the gap, this back and forth that they've had. It's now up to 3 seconds between themselves and Seitz. Holland's not giving up on this, though. He wants to get right back by David Soroy. Looking through, and it looks like we've got Tyler Gore with a pit stop. Oh, and Soroy as well. So Soroy with a scheduled stop. They're getting towards the end of the pit window now. See if he decides to take tires, or is this going to be fuel only? Fuel only. Who's also in from the top 10, taking his service. Soroy, by the way, came out in 6th, and he is in clear air. Crane Foose, in the meantime, also coming out without any traffic directly in front of him, so that's good news for the 55. So is Greg Seitz going to elect to come in yet? He's through Dingledell and then up and over Sheen. Let's see, just 2 more corners, and then we'll find out what his strategy is, if he's going to respond. Again, we saw no tires for David Soroy, so he shouldn't have lost temperature, but also shouldn't really find much in the way of pace out of them. And Seitz isn't coming in. Holland also going to stay out.
Trying to run that car as light as possible on fuel. If they're not taking tyres in the race, there's no point coming in early. Obviously, science, so the lighter the... Use a science lesson for the day, the light... Nope, let's wait a bit.
Day and David also pitting now. Looks like Delp is going to join them. LeBlanc, ooh, this could be towards the end of that pit window then. So watch them mostly take fuel, except for Day, who did take tires. At least that's what his his pit stop time looks like. Crane Foose and Delp also appear to be ones who have taken tires here today. Oh, we had a wreck with Armando Edwards. This is the number 26 car. I think he managed to keep from hitting anything, but it was awful close. This looks like it's in Sterling. Here's the replay. So this is through Sheen now. And then the left-hander of Sterling, you're going to see the rear of the car just come around.
And Seitz is pitted to back live, being followed by Holland. The point I was going to make, obviously fuel weighs quite a bit, so the lighter the less fuel in the car, the lighter the car is. When you're running the same tyres for the whole length of the race, obviously you want the car as light as possible so it can go as quick as possible. So pitting early means you run a heavier car for most of the race.
It's a very long stop for Greg Seitz, about 8 seconds, so he must have taken tires, but that gap actually still worked out well because he's about 2.5 seconds ahead of Savoy. Owen, what's wrong with Holland? Why is he still in there? Did he have
speed?
Does he have a speeding penalty? Yeah, he might have. That looks like a penalty to me.
I don't know what for though, because I just looked at his pit entry speed and he came across the line at 71 kilometers an hour. Pit speed 70. So I don't understand.
Huh. Well, in the meantime, since that split things up at the top, we've got a battle for what is effectively 8th, which is now David Holland and Kevin Santana back there. He's fallen to 9th since the pit stops, and Lionel Duprat is behind him giving chase. But I can already tell, it looks like Holland, despite the penalty, has still got his speed because he's pulled almost half a second on Santana in just this half a lap here.
Yeah, he's got to move on too here so he doesn't drop too many points in that championship fight. He wants to head into the final round with as much up his sleeve as he possibly can have. Rob Clinard, I think, is a lap down. Oh yeah, of course, no, Rob Clinard has gone a lap down. He was running in 4th earlier, but he obviously got that disconnect. He's managed to get back in the session. Luckily for him, he'll pick up a few points, but still disappointed. Eric LeBlanc is the next car in front of Holland. He's about half of the main straight ahead of him.
Let's look at 12th place as well. This is between Richards and Verity. We were watching them before. Verity is closing in on Richards, but decides to back out of it by the time they hit Clark. He's going to get another bite of the apple with a great exit out of that final corner and up the Brabham straight. Does he try a brave move? This is a tough one to try and pass into Paddock Hill Bend. He's not quite brave enough. He goes into the gravel for good measure on the exit. He is staying close, though. He has got that rain light in plain view. And all he has to do is get himself a launch out of Surtees. I think he's going to have a nice little slipstream. Oh, and going way wide for Richards certainly doesn't help.
He's just offered that one up on a platter there for Verity, and he'll go to the inside. And, well, as long as Richards doesn't play too hardball here, he should take it away. Richards tried to hang there, but it's so tough to hang on the outside of that corner.
Just couldn't hang tough. Let's go back to Armando Edwards, who is in the pits. Is this a second stop? I think it is. I believe he was in before, after his spin that we saw. He's taking tires this time, and he's out of the car. So that's day done for the 26. We're not sure why, but he's clearly had enough of what is a very, very tough track to drive. So we watch Greg Seitz continue with that wide line you pointed out, Ryan. I see him clipping the grass, and that seems like flirting with danger, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably something he's tested out and practiced before this race and found that it's giving them more time and obviously be able to open up that corner. And we always talk about the racing line. You want to make the corner as straight as possible and scrub off as little speed as possible, and that extra tire width was obviously finding him a decent enough gain to negate the risk of being out there.
As we continue to watch Greg Seitz, who has really been the major competitor for David Holland for much of this season, just really kept him to task. Some tracks he's been a little bit slower, but otherwise he's usually put the pressure on. I'm watching David Holland to see what kind of pace he has compared to LeBlanc, because we wondered whether or not he could catch him. Interestingly, LeBlanc was actually quicker than Holland last lap. Credit where credit is due. We don't often say that.
Yeah, about a tenth quicker than him. So Holland's going to really struggle to get to his rear end here. He's still about 4 seconds behind him at this point, and he's got a laps car on the way too. A laps car that's lapping pretty quickly as well. So yeah, I think Holland might have shot himself in the foot with whatever penalty he got there.
A lot of our battles have unfortunately split apart here after the pit stops. Why don't we head back down to Sebastian Preu in 18th position. Haven't really given him much screen time, and he's actually on the hunt for Tyler Gore in 17th right now. From Sebastian's perspective here, a good sense of how much speed these cars carry through these turns.
Yeah, definitely a track suited to these machines. I mean, any track with lots of fast flowing feel to it and high speed corners is brilliant for a car with downforce. You know, your Formula 3 car, Formula Renault, the F1 cars you got on the service too. They're all going to be extremely nice to drive at these tracks. Somewhere like, I mean, the only track I think of is actually Detroit, off the top of my head, which is a lot of stop and start. It doesn't play the characteristics of the car at all.
Right now, Sebastian looks marginally faster than Tyler, so passing might be a little bit difficult depending on where he catches him. Don't need to show it, but I do believe Clenard managed to pass Barnett in a recent lap, so Rod has got himself back up to 15th. It's a good slipstream here up to Hawthorne, but Sebastian's still not quite there, so Tyler will live to fight another day, and he's got to do it for about 11 more minutes, unfortunately. Now, the one thing that, as Sebastian goes way off, and that's not going to help his case on trying to get an overtake on the number 7. And we got Clenard in for another pit stop. We've got a number of cars that have been in more than once unexpectedly today. Not sure what's going on there. What I was going to say before, as we continue to watch from the roll bar here of the 79, is one thing that does happen here in real life that I would love to see someday is the Formula Ford Festival that they hold here, and it's brought a lot of famous names in open wheel racing through there. But we have the Skippy, which is close enough, I suppose, but not quite the same thing as a Formula Ford. Meanwhile, is Raymond Day catching David at 9? Look at these lap comparisons. A 1:16.2 for James and Raymond with a 15.8. That's about half a second quicker.
And down the straight now is in range to get that slipstream too. Well and truly, and a 15.6 this time plays a 16.6, a full second quicker. David struggling a lot out there.
And James David is one of those that did not take tires. I wonder if those tires are helping Day, because he did. And they've also got Kranefuss, who also took tires, who is rapidly approaching from behind as well. So I guess the call of the day was fresh rubber. It just didn't quite show itself until we get down to these last few minutes. And now looks like the 89 could be ruining his decision. He covers off the middle of the track, finally comes back to the middle, or to the left side there. Now that they hit the end of the straight. Oh, as he puts two wheels off into the grass on the exit of Hawthorne.
Yeah, when you take the fresh tires, you don't get the benefit straight away, because of course these hardwoods are going to be extremely cold. When you come out of pit lane, you'll probably lose time, in fact, for the first lap, maybe 2. But then, after that, you start to find a big benefit, and the longer the race goes, the bigger the benefit becomes as, say, James David's tyres start to get towards the cliff that they're going to fall off. And definitely Raymond Day probably made the better of the two options in the pit stop phase.
Another run, but he doesn't think it's worth trying to risk it through Paddock Hill Bend. He has a little bit of a bobble there over the apex. So that backs him up into Kranefuss, as I said, who is coming very fast. Oh, and Kevin Santana. Kevin Santana's had an issue. This was out of Clark. Here's the replay. And I think he had a little bit of an issue on the way in, and then on the way out, since he tried to collect it, you're going to see him clip the left sides into the grass.
Very unfortunate not to collect the ball in that incident too. Loses a bunch of time, but no damage to the car. He'll be able to keep going. But a big shame for Santana.
Yeah, that sends him back down to 10th after he had at least gained one spot that we saw. I don't know if he was up to 8th yet again. Haven't missed anything in that battle between 3rd, 4th, and 5th. David still holding back Day, still holding back Kranefuss. These new tires, very reminiscent of what we tend to see in IndyCar racing, if anything. Over on the European side, we're so used to those tire warmers, allowing them to really just pound the laps out as soon as they exit the pits. But these drivers having to really get them up to speed, try and figure out what is the good strategy here. Seven and a half minutes left to go now. Day looks a little bit stuck, though. He's gotten up to the back of David very fast, and then David's not giving him an opportunity to get by. It's another run through Pilgrim's Drop. But once again, Raymond Day struggling to try and make inroads. We're not missing anything ahead of them. In front of this trio, it's about 15 seconds just to get to David Soroy, who's in 2nd place, and it's another 5 seconds up to Greg Seitz, who is trying desperately to get his 2nd win of the season here in only the 8th round, compared to David Holland's 6th that he's collected. Holland, by the way, currently in 7th place. He did catch and pass the block.
So this battle here between David and Day, it seems Day's definitely got the pace, but he's not quick where it matters. Coming to that last corner, he's not going to get close enough. What about here at turn 3 though? Turn 2. Oh, he's not quite got the overlap. He's on the wrong side of the track here too.
Yeah, it looks like a good defense, finding the grip the long way around for James David. Oh, and here we go. Kranefuss is going to try and send one into Surtees. That's a hard place to make it stick. And some brave coverage there from Raymond Day to deny him.
I was going to say, Day's struggling where it matters. And that's why he can't find his way by, because turn 1's his first opportunity. That is going to be very unhelpful when he's trying to defend a position too, because if he's struggling through there and Kranefuss is not, then he's going to probably, you'd expect, be able to slipstream by him or put a good maneuver on him into turn 1. So Day's going to have to be really, really careful here. Kranefuss took tires too, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He did indeed take tires. And, oh, here's a great run from Day. But this is where he needs that speed, is up the Brabham straight. It's another decent exit. I'm not sure if this is enough, though, because look at this. They run out of straight once again, hitting the brakes for Paddock Hill Bend, looking for it, coming up to Druids. Last time he pulled the same move, trying to send it in deep to the inside. If he can get the overlap, he can continue the attack, and he is going to. He's going to be wheel to wheel, but he doesn't get the exit that he needs. And that's going to open the door as here comes Daniel Kranefuss. But unfortunately, he can't quite solidify that pass still. We have an attempt around the outside of Surtees as Raymond Day is looking all over the gearbox of James David to see if there is anything that's going to stick. Now he finally finds the inside of a corner as they come up to Hawthorne. They're going to be 3 all clumped together, but it looks like a big lift there from Kranefuss as he's not willing to risk it. But David is. James David around the outside with a successful defense is and that's going to be net code. Into the wall for James David with a hard knock into the tires as this battle continues between Day and Kranefuss.
That is so unfortunate there for David. He put a fantastic defensive showing on display there. And around the outside at Hawthorne, we've seen so many drivers in that position lift off. He committed and basically had defended the spot, and unfortunate there.
Yeah, we're going to look at the replay, which has unfortunately ended his race because he's taken a tow. Let's see. I think we need to go a little bit farther back here. And this was huge net code between them. At least on my screen, he was nowhere near when the apparent contact happened. He was much closer down at the apex, and he's way beyond it by the time he starts to spin. Yeah. Whew.
Krenfus was basically pushing day 2 after that incident, but he's just been able to gap him a little bit now. But he's still going to be pretty close, within range.
And just had a pass between Delp and Holland to see if we can pull up this replay. This is important because David is loving this. Now that he's passed Delp, that's got him to 5th because we've lost James David. So 2 positions gained in a battle lap. Just gets a good slipstream, and that's the pass we've seen a lot today to the inside of Hawthorne. Gets it done with about, I think we're down to 3 minutes left here. 2.5. So this means as long as Holland doesn't have a mistake, he'll continue this consistent top 5 finish in all 8 rounds. This is just phenomenal. Seitz is going to try and do his best to eat into that gap, because he's going to take the victory. He's going to take the pole bonus. There might be others that we'll find out after the race. We'll have to wait to see the stats to see if he gets the other bonuses, such as the fastest lap. But he's doing all he can. It's just it doesn't seem like this championship is in his hands right now.
No, it doesn't. And that stat about the top 5 in every race is incredible, because every track has its own characteristics, and each driver generally you find has his strengths and his or her strengths or weaknesses too, and it's fairly consistent across, stop-start tracks, fast and flowing tracks. It's very, very impressive.
We'll continue to watch Day battle with Krenfus, seeing if he can get himself onto the podium. Oh, David Holland! Holland is stopped. What happened here? He didn't hit anything, and he's getting it going. He's going to lose some spots, though. That top 5 consistency might not happen after all. Here on the replay, it is what we saw before. The same thing. The car snaps out of Paddock Hill Bend, and he has to slam on the brakes to keep it from hitting the tires.
Yep, he's really struggling today. He's now gone back to, 7th place behind Eric LeBlanc. So 2 spots out of the top 5 now. And that's probably the 7th or 8th time we've seen him touch the grass at some point.
So I believe we're going to get... oh, yeah, we did get the white flag this time already. Greg Seitz, who is coming up to Surtees here, still has half a lap to go, but he's 6 seconds clear of David Soroy. All he has to do is keep the car safe, keep it pointed forward, cruise it home as long as he took enough fuel, which, judging by the relatively long stop compared to the others around him, I'd say he took no chances with it this time. Down through Dingledale and Sheen, one of the more dangerous corners there. He gives it plenty of leeway out to the edge of the track. Same thing with Sterling. We're only going to have 11 cars left on the lead lap, and not even many of them running left here today, but this is the one that matters for Greg Seitz, his 2nd win of the season, and it comes here at Brands Hatch. So Roy takes 2nd. But who is going to take 3rd? It is not settled. Krenfus has managed to get by Day when we weren't looking. He is up into 3rd now. We'll watch the replay after the checkers, see how that happened. But first, let's see if it switches back around. Very close on him. Raymond Day tries to get the shot, but it is not enough. 3rd place on the podium is going to go to Krenfus.
Just not enough straight left in the end there for Day.
Holland winds up with 7th. He could have had that 5th place, but it was his own undoing, his own mistake that cost him. As the last cars on the last lap, or on the lead lap rather, are battling for position. This is Daniels and Richards. Is this lap traffic in front of them? Yes, it is. So they won't get in the way though, because it looks like Richards can't quite reach the back of Daniels in time. Josh takes that 10th place. Now let's figure out how Day swapped positions there with Kranefuss. Oh, and it was on Pilgrim's Drop yet again, out of Surtees. Here it is right here. Oh, it was a mistake. He straddled the curb. Great heads up by Daniel to be able to pounce on that.
Yep, but once again, we see the pressure late on in the race, and he comes unstuck as a result. You can't afford to make a mistake in that situation, and it is the mistake that offered up the opportunity in the end for the overtake.
That's going to close us out, but not for the broadcast. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. If you watch on screen, you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Brands Hatch. We have a different winner than our usual so far most of this season. It's been David Holland much of the time, but Greg Seitz has managed to pull it off. He wasn't perfect this race. He had a horrible start, but he recovered and he took the victory. Almost max points. We'll have to find out if he had the rest of those bonus points as well. So Roy was a distant second behind him, with Daniel Kranefuss last lap has to get 3rd place on the podium over Raymond Day, who finished in 4th. Nicholas Delp was P5 today, with Eric LeBlanc in 6th. Holland, who started on the front row, we found out it wasn't a penalty in the pits. He got damage on the car. We're not sure exactly from where, but we suspect on the bottom, on the under tray, that cost him that extra time and set him backwards. So his first time finishing out of the top 5 all season long. Lionel DePratt was in 8th, with Stephen Verity in 9th, and then Josh Daniels rounds out your top 10.
The last car on the lead lap was Christopher Richards in 11th. Owen McLaughlin finished a lap down in 12th, heard of Daniel Barnett, Tyler Gore, 4 laps down. These drivers that run into a lot of issues today. Santana, Clinard, David Herbert, James David, Sebastian Protz, and Armando Edwards.
Then from there on down, I think we might actually be almost all DNFs in here. This track gobbled them up pretty quickly. We do have our winner ready to talk to us as well. Greg Seitz here in the booth. And Greg, before we get to the victory, which congratulations, by the way, let's start at the very beginning where it looked like you had a bit of a bad start there. Did that right foot get a little bit too itchy?
Yeah, you think? All I was thinking is like, I have the pace today and don't screw up the start. So what did I do?
Go figure. Well, you recovered well, though. It took you a few laps. You finally got yourself back up to the front. Did you know you'd be able to pull that gap? Because it certainly, as soon as you were in clear air, that car seemed like a rocket ship.
Yeah, I think I had the pace. Just looking at the practice times, my setup just worked perfectly here today. So it just was great, and the car just gave me total confidence. So yeah, I figured it's just so hard to pass here. Sitting behind David, just kind of waiting for an opportunity and not having to push too hard. I had a couple chances, but they would have been dive bombs. So I figured once I got past, there's a really good chance that I would sort of stretch a gap there.
Well, British Track seemed to agree with you. So do you think that'll continue at Silverstone in a week's time?
I hope so. That was another good track for me and Skippy. So hopefully it translates to the F3 here. And I hope so. Because I'm real happy with the result here today. And thanks for, I just want to thank the guys I was racing with. They were really respectful and we had some close moments there. So it was really good racing.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, it was great for us to watch as well. That was Greg Seitz, our winner here today in the number 74. And up next, I believe Ryan's caught up with third place finisher Daniel Kranefuss.
Yeah, third place today from 8th on the grid. Good job. You had a pretty busy race out there today, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that was on edge the entire time. It's a tough track. I just want to give a shout out to Greg, my teammate. Man, what a good job. Good points day for Rust Racing. And everybody at the PRL and GSRC, thank you guys so much for putting this on. Yeah, that was a blast. I had a great battle there with James and Raymond. I'm not sure what happened there with James. I don't know if it was netcode or if he just got two on the dirt. But fun battle, especially after the pit stops.
Yeah, talk us through that battle. It looked like a pretty hard place to pass out there today. And were you finding that out on track?
Yeah, absolutely. You really kind of had to wait for somebody to make a mistake, honestly. And James and Raymond were running really tight lines. I ran them down after the pit stops, but I couldn't do anything with them. So I figured I was just going to wait and see what happened, and was a little fortunate there again. With James going off track, and then I was just hoping to try to get a run on Raymond into turn 2, but he was really stout there. So. If he hadn't had that little bobble there on the last lap, I don't think I would have got him. But fun battle, fair racing. That was really good.
Heading into the final 2 rounds, you confident of potentially some more podium finishes, maybe pinching a win? How confident are you?
Honestly, not that confident. I feel like my pace is like, depending on the track, 6th to 10th if there's nobody dropping out of the race. So I think a couple of guys up ahead of me had some problems today. I know David did. And so without that, I think I would have been somewhere, 5th, 6th, 7th, something like that. I think that's probably, if I finish there, I consider that a win for me.
All right. Well, you wish you the best of luck. You've already thanked a couple of people and sponsors. Is everyone else?
No, that's it. I just want to give a shout out, I guess, to everybody else that's watching. I got a couple of friends and coworkers that watch these streams, and so yeah, thanks for the support and thanks for watching, everybody.
All right, thank you very much for joining us up here in the booth.
Thank you.
That was Daniel Kranefuss, third place finisher, and unfortunately, looks like we didn't get David Soroy to talk to, so we're going to close it out with a big thank you ourselves to our sponsor. Once again, that is Ninja Trader. If you want to check them out, you can find them at ninjatrader.com. Also, a thanks goes to iRacing for putting us on IESN. Be sure and subscribe to the channel. All you got to do is click the big red button that says subscribe. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Ryan, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com or check out our social media, which is on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. The next race for this series is going to be Silverstone, as we mentioned. That'll be Thursday, February 20th at 9 p.m. Eastern. But we do have a race coming up in just a few minutes' time here. It's a new one for us. It's the Throwback IndyCar Series for Eucora. So definitely stick around. But we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen. So check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.